Hi friends, welcome back to part 3 on selling and transaction analysis. In the first part, we talked about importance of TA on building relationships and communication so that you become an effective salesman. Second part, we understood what Leonardo Egburn talked about, the 3 ego states, parent, adult and child, and what each of these 3 ego states mean and how they impact you. In this session, we are going to talk about the various transactions. So there are primarily 3 transactions that three kind of transactions that occur between these ego states. So when 2 people are talking, it's not 2 people or 2 personalities interacting. These are actually 6 ego states talking to each other. So if you recognize which ego state is talking to which ego state, who is communicating back again, this becomes the entire interplay, understanding what transactions are all about. So let's talk about the 3 basic category of transactions that are there. The first category of transaction is called the complementary transaction. There are 9 possible complementary transactions. What do we mean by a complementary transaction? When one particular ego state communicates to a targeted ego state in the opposite person, and that targeted ego state responds back, then this transaction would be considered as a complementary transaction. Let me give you quick examples of complementary transactions. A parent to child complementary transaction. Hello, go and go to study or go to sleep, and the child listens and goes off to sleep. The parent ego state communicated with the child ego state of the child that he gave him a command that you go and sleep. The child followed the command and said, yes daddy, I go and sleep. It is a complementary parent to child transaction. Let's talk about a child to parent transaction. Say maybe I go up to my boss and I say, sir, can I get a leave? It is the child in me seeking permission of the parent to give me leave. So he can give me 2 responses. He says, no, you cannot take leave now because it is work. Or he can say, okay, you can take leave. He gives his decision and I follow that decision. I agree with that decision. This is a child to parent transaction which gets complementary given in a particular manner. Another classical example from adult to adult transaction would be, I would ask an individual, what is the time? And they would look at the watch and they would say, okay, the time is 6:30 or 5:30 or whatever is the time at that time. So this would be a adult to adult complementary transaction because the adult asked for data and he received data back again. So this was the complementary transaction between each of the adult states. There are multiple. Adult can question the parent can answer. The adult can talk to a child and the child can answer. So there are multiple complementary transactions that can come into play, and we can understand this part of it. The second part of it is known as the cross transaction. So what is a cross transaction? Cross transaction is basically when one ego state communicates to another ego state and some other ego state responds. Then this is known as a cross transaction. For example, the same example I'll give you. The parent in me is trying to hook the child into my son, and I tell him, now Kabir, go to sleep. And Kabir looks at me, no dad, I will not. Now what is happening here? This is a classical cross transaction. Primarily because my parent is trying to hook his child ego state and telling him to do something, but his child ego state doesn't respond. His parents respond, why should I sleep? I want to watch TV, I want to do something. He crosses the transaction and this causes a conflict. Another classical example of the time I asked you. I will ask someone, I will ask you, what is the time? And adult is asking for adult data, but the parent responds, why should I tell you the time? You look into your watch. A parent ego state comes and crosses that transaction. So this becomes a classical cross transaction. Another example of crossing a transaction is my child in me comes up to you and tells you, hey, let's go and party. And then your response is this any time to party? You need to be able to study. So your ability, or you need to work, or we have important things to do. When this kind of my child is trying to talk to your child, but your parent goes on to respond, it is known as a cross transaction. Cross transactions result in blocking of the communication. So the third type of transactions are the ulterior transactions. Now these ulterior transactions, let me quickly explain what they mean. On the surface, they look like complementary transactions or transactions between 2 ego states, but underneath there is another communication that is happening. Classical example that I'll give you is if you and I are working as colleagues, or you are reporting into me and you come late every day to office, and today also you've come late to office. So I walk up to you and I ask you, how come you are early today? and you respond back that sorry sir, today also I got the bus late. Now if you look at this transaction, apparently it looked like the adult talked to an adult by asking how come you are early today, but ulteriorly it was a transaction that my parent is trying to talk to your child by saying that I have observed that today also you are late, and the child appropriately responded by saying that sorry sir, I got the bus was late. There could be another response that I come walking to you and say how come you are late today, how come you are early today, and you look at and tell me I got up early so I am early. So if you give me this response, on the surface it looks like we had a complementary adult to adult transaction where my adult spoke to your adult asking your adult why are you early, and your adult responded that you got the bus early or you got up early. However, it's a cross transaction ulteriorly, because ulterior transaction, it's my parent talking to your child that I've seen that you're late today also, and you have crossed that transaction by your parent saying do what you want to do, I care two hoots. So this becomes an ulterior transaction. Our life is full of these kind of ulterior transactions. So if you look at what the possibilities of a number of ulterior transactions that you can do, there are 6,480 odd ulterior transactions that you can make. So if you look at these three transactions, complementary transactions, there are 9 different types, 72 different ways of crossing transactions, but 6,480 ways of doing ulterior transactions. So our life gets full of these ulterior transactions, and Leonardo Eric Berne calls this the games that people play. So most of our transactions between us and our customers land up also getting ulterior. With our near and dear ones, you get into an ulterior. Ulterior transactions result in a negative stroke value, and complementary positive transactions result in positive stroke value. Cross transactions also result in a negative value. Our ability to understand who is interacting where and what are the kind of transactions that we do and what is the impact of this in terms of the stroke is something that we need to understand. Please keep watching my videos. In the next part, we will spend some time understanding how do we give and receive strokes and the importance of creating adult to adult complementary transactions in delivering better stroke value. Thank you very much. Keep watching.